Gotta love it when there's a delay. It's lunchtime, must be a lot of people online. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Reason We Learn Lunchtime Live. I may do this as many weeks in a row as I can. I'd love to say every week, but then something will come
The
up and
Reason We Learn
y'all say, "Hey, you
Lunchtime
said every
Live.
week and it's
I
not
may
happening. What happened?" Okay, so first things first, welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time here, please go ahead and smash that like button and share this live stream out to others who would be interested in hearing about what's going on in education lately. I'd love to say this week, but it's been ongoing for years. So, there'll be some new stuff this week that you hear about. And then there's just stuff you're going to hear about more of the same, but, a little greater connection to other things through the lens of me. If you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can be notified when I make new videos or go live like this. And if you want to talk about homeschooling your kids or walking away, then definitely join my locals at thereasonwelearn.locals.com. I want to show you the latest in the merch department. I made these Just Walk Away from Public Schools t-shirts. They're available on Teespring at thereasonwelearn.com. So if you go to thereasonwelearn.com, that's my Teespring store. It's not on YouTube yet, but I have a bunch of different things. And this is the latest t-shirt. On the back, it has a Hannah Arendt quote, which I'm going to show you. You probably won't be able to read it, but you can see that it's there. Okay. And hope you can see it. And it says, the aim of totalitarian education is not to teach you certain conclusions, is to prevent you from having any, to being able to develop any, basically. I'm not getting it exactly right, but that's the gist of what it says. So it comes in many colors. So not just white on black, you can get a white on other colors, and you can also get a black on white. So anything you purchase from the store supports my channel. If you become a member, either YouTube or locals, supports my work. So I appreciate it greatly. You get the biggest bang for your buck on locals, but if you don't have kids in the schools or that's not really of interest to you, you can join the YouTube channel. And hopefully when I get enough members of the YouTube channel, I can start doing like members only content. Anyway, why did I call you all here today? Today, while I was sitting in the parking lot waiting for my daughter at the DMV, it hit me. All of this is connected, even if it doesn't seem like education policy is connected to other policies, which we will not talk about on YouTube. I have to use like sign language. Okay. It's all connected. It's all part of the same thing, the same worldview, the same mindset, which essentially is that you are not to be trusted to make your own decisions. You're not. Your betters are. Who are your betters? Well, could be any number of people who run the institutions that run the world. So in the United States, that would be the government, academia, the media. These institutions are obviously run by people. There are people at the helm of them. And the people who've risen to helm these institutions have gotten it into their heads over the past, I don't know, probably 100 years, that they just simply know better. They know better. They're quite full of themselves. And through the combination of technology and wealth and the rural urban divide and a bunch of other shifts in our society, they have been able to insulate their perception from challenge because they literally live with like-minded people most of the time. So they are physically, emotionally, and intellectually separated from people who might challenge their point of view. And so they think they absolutely know better. They are living better lives than you because the life you live is one they imagine. They don't actually know what it is. Have you noticed that? You listen to some of these people in the media talk about how you live, you regular, average, working class or middle class person in America who, didn't sail through lockdowns like it was no big deal. DoorDash just showed up and brought me everything I need. And thank goodness for Amazon. And I really don't mind these restrictions. It's actually kind of nice. I'm home and I can, go to work in my pajamas, whatever. Okay. Or I'm getting paid to do nothing. Or anybody who kind of came through that, they tell you what your life is like. And you're like, what are you smoking? What are you talking about? And there are quite a few people who are Black and Hispanic, who are surprised to find out that they would prefer to be called Latinx or Latinx or whatever. Or they were preferred to be called people of color. They were, or that they were supposed to have certain views. They were rather surprised to find that out. They're like, wait, I didn't sign up for that. I never said that. So they think they know all about you. And because they know all about you and because they wouldn't want to live the life they imagine you live. Again, none of this is real. Okay. They couldn't imagine that. That actually scares them. It's kind of scary. They don't want you making decisions that might back up on their lives because they've cornered the market on living the right life, the right kind of life, having the right kind of views. And they think that all these luxuries they have come from decisions they've made. They actually believe that. They think the food like magically shows up in the grocery store and things just magically happen. The power magically goes on because of things that they do and other learned people who have college degrees and PhDs have made happen. And they really believe that. I think they really do believe that. And so they go about moving the pieces around like I can order the world. You see, if they stop to think about it, they genuinely believe that God, nature, whatever, just the organic processes that have led us to this day made a mistake. Made a mistake and needs to be corrected and put on the straight and narrow path. And that's, and y'all are really oppressed and you just don't know it. You need to wake up. You need to wake up and understand what is really going on. And the reason this, I started thinking about all of this and all the news and how it's all connected outside the DMV is there's government, like a really good example of how well government organizes things for our own good, right? The DMV. You have to go there to buy back your right to, travel around in your own motor vehicle. Okay. Well, here in North Carolina, they've decided you cannot be a walk-in at the DMV except for one location in the whole state. It's an hour away from where I live. So if you want to walk in and do something like renew a license or get a license, as my now 18-year-old daughter wanted to do, get her license, you have 45 minutes, 7 to 7:45 in the morning, be there with all your paperwork and maybe we'll serve you. Maybe for $44 we'll sell you a license. So we were there at 6:30 and we waited in line like dutiful little people. We were just like, okay, we'll get in line. And there were people who showed up and decided they didn't need to wait in line. They can just wait at the front. They could just stand at the front. And I saw them. They were just standing at the front waiting for the door to open. And when the door finally did open, they just walked in. Like the 30 people who were waiting in line. Now, I'll give you three guesses what demographic they belong to. And the first two don't count. Now, do you think we were able to say anything to them about not waiting in line? Ooh. Do you think they cared that they stepped ahead of elderly people? No. Do you think they stepped ahead of people even who were from the same demographic? No. Do you think the lady opening the door said, sir, there were two of them, you need to go back and wait in the line? Oh, hell no. No. They were just, come on in. Because they were right at the front of the line. So there goes civilization when you can just like go wherever you want and assume no one's going to say anything to you because, that would probably be a bad idea. That's the first thing I noticed. I'm like, oh, I see how this works. Okay, interesting. Then she goes inside. And I can't go in with her because between us, we only had one mask and they require masks. Now, I brought mine. She didn't bring hers. She wasn't too happy with the one I gave her because it said worn by force, not by fear. So she flipped it around to where the white side, not quite as cheeky as I am. I was excited to go inside and take a picture of myself inside the government office wearing my worn by force, not by fear, mask. But alas, it was not to be. They were supposed to have masks. In fact, it said to ask for a mask. But the lady says, I'm sorry, supply chain difficulties. We don't have any masks. We're out of them and our distributor won't have them in for several weeks. So nobody in the whole DMV could go to the drugstore with the taxpayer dollars they love to waste every other which way and buy a few boxes of masks for the people who don't have them when they show up. No, apparently that's not an option. Come back in 3 weeks or go home and get your mask and forfeit your place in line. So that was interesting too. Supply chain problems just magically occur. She goes in, I went outside. She's 18, so she could get her license. Her permit expired. And so she can't really operate a vehicle even to practice without that. They said, well, do you want to get your license today? She said, well, I guess so. Okay, fine. They've waived the road test. That's not scary at all. Just go take a written test and get your license, even if you've, been in a car for an hour. And she says, okay. So they said, well, do you have proof of insurance? She writes me, where's my proof of insurance? I'm like, you're what? Why would you have proof of insurance? You're not a licensed driver. We don't typically like insure people with a permit. I mean, it's just that you're on my insurance for now. Like I'm liable and all the cars are, insured to us. Well, this whole process took like half an hour of back and forth. We had to literally, while they waited, add her to the insurance as a non-licensed driver because, in the insurance, there's a space to put the license number, but she doesn't have one. So we found there was a space to put her as a non-licensed driver. We'll have to go right back and change it. Then we had to take the declaration page and not email it. I sent screenshots. No, I'm sorry, not screenshots. Okay, I'll email it. No, we need a fax. A fax. 1990 call. They want their technology back. So I had to download a fax program with my 2 little bars of service. I had to pay $6.99 for each, for the pages to send through the fax service. Genius Fax sent it off. They got it. Guess what? They gave her a license. The address doesn't match where she actually lives. It's her dad's address. Nobody seemed to care about that. But, the insurance doesn't tie to anything. It just says non-licensed driver, but that's okay. You're in the system now as being on the insurance radar, and the state saw fit to give her a license. But this entire process took 2 hours and a lot of back and forth, and nobody knew what to do about anything. And that's how the government works now. And our betters tell us they know what's better for us in every respect, including how to educate our children. So I just give you that little snippet, my lived experience working with government. So these are the people, these are our betters who organize all this. Okay. These are the people who want to educate your kids. So what's going on with them lately? Well, let's take a look. I have figured out how to loop sound now through StreamYard. So that's kind of fun. I'm going to show you some great videos today. But let's take a look at my bookmarks, and we'll just take a little trip through the bookmarks and go through what's going on. What do our betters have in store for us? What are they doing? Now, thank you so much, Jane. This is slept on. This is my witchy poo look. I'm sorry, what is this? How do you control the big things? Get people used to waiting in line for little things. Thank you. You get it. Oh my God. Welcome to my stream. Thank you. Thank you. Di Stoke. How do you control the big things? Get people used to waiting in line for little things and give the right thinking people an advantage so we all become right things to get the front of the line. There you go. Gosh, I love it when super smart people come to my stream. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, all right. Somebody gets it. They've been doing this for, ever, right? They've been making this way in line and put up with nonsense. And you just kind of have to go along with the nonsense, including, by the way, drop your children off so that complete strangers can watch them and tell them when they may and may not use the bathroom. That has become normalized. And then it's cover your face so nobody can hear you or, see you or understand what's going on. That's normal too. And so on. And so it's all connected, guys. It's all connected. We are being worn down by all of these intrusions, these little bitty intrusions, this Chinese water torture, drip, 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 so that eventually when the really big intrusive stuff, which I'll get to, shows up, we're like, well, it was only a matter of time. And we're basically complacent about it. The frog in the pot, whatever. That's why I get so animated about things like a mandate for a mask. People are like, it's just a mask. I'm like, no, it isn't. Nothing is just anything. So first of all right, let's take a look at my screen. I've got some interesting things to show you from Twitter. See this lovely picture here? Thanks to James Lindsay. These are obviously Nazis. And before you think I'm being hyperbolic or that he is, let's take a look at this. Nothing to see here, just Nazis marching with their German word Erwache under the swastika on their banners, meaning awaken. Awaken. Does that sound familiar? Awaken, as in woke. And it does. It says right here, Erwachen. It's like underneath the swastika. You can't really see it. It's kind of small, but it does. And I lived in Austria for a year, so I actually know what that word means. So that's the first thing. Just remember that. Next time somebody says, that's a crazy conspiracy theory, there's no similarities at all. Actually, there really is. The cult-like atmosphere is familiar for a reason. So then we get to woke distance. He says, the woke will try to invalidate every term we use to name their movement. They want it to look like the manifestations of their ideology and activism are unrelated, spontaneously occurring organic events rather than the fruit of pre-planned activism connected to common ideology. Now, it really doesn't matter what you call it. If you call it fascism, if you call it, wokeism, if you call whatever you want to call it, it kind of doesn't matter. What I said at the outset is the deal. They're small groups of people who run the institutions in the West. I mean, it's not even just this country. And they know better than you, they think. And therefore, they have to dispense with your messy, annoying, petty little freedoms because how dare you have those, person? You're only a person for now. You used to be a man or a woman or a taxpayer. No, now you get to be a person, and pretty soon you will just be citizen if you're lucky, unless they take their citizenship away, and then maybe you'll be comrade. Anyway, so, and as Chris Rufo points out, it is also intellectually honest and coherent. Woke derives from the theory of critical consciousness. Critical race theory is the discipline driving much of left-wing policy and pedagogy in the United States. If their brands have become toxic, that's their problem. Yeah, we didn't actually even name it. When you listen to the postmodernists, they talk about being awakened and wide awake to the oppression, and you can't see it. It's like you have blinders on until we take the blinders off and you're fully awake to your oppression. That is their thing. It is intellectually consistent. And so here's more of Woke Distance's thread. He says they want the results of their views, transing kids, lowering academic standards, replacing equality of opportunity with equality of outcome, labeling everything racist, etc., to appear unconnected. So woke ideology can continue to fly under the radar and continue gaining power. They don't want you to see that these things are connected. No. It's just, this is happening in schools. So you don't have kids in school. Don't worry about it. It's not connected. It doesn't have anything to do with you. Well, this is only happening in the workplace. Oh, you don't work for a place that has over 100 people and they're not gonna, that doesn't have anything to do with you. You don't know. What do you care? It doesn't work. You don't have to worry about it. Oh, you don't, this doesn't apply. This doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to you, except it does. When one person loses their civil rights, it does affect you, even if that person is on the other side of the country, because the fact that it could happen to them means it can happen to you. This is what I've been saying about Gabrielle Clark's case, her son's case. The fact that he was discriminated against in his classroom and was a victim of compelled speech affects us all. If that lawsuit could go forward and ended up setting a precedent, it could have a ripple effect for us all, for all students. But, until it gets funded, it can't go anywhere. Once people see these events are connected, the fruit of an ideology and set of social theories created by activists and intellectuals, they will want to examine, scrutinize, and criticize both the ideology and the social theories the ideology is based on. This is what the woke want to avoid. They think the less visible an ideology is, the more power it has. However, if you can make an ideology visible, you can open it up to criticism and attack it. This is why they say things like make whiteness visible. So they try to invent an ideology that isn't. And then they want to, raise it up so you see it constantly so they can then tear it down and then claim they did something. Every single thing they do, they are the people running the institutions. Every single thing they do is not only connected to itself, but it is part of a giant projection. Everything they say you do, they are doing. Literally everything. So they say you're causing people's illness or mental illness. That is exactly what they're doing. They say that you are compromising, other people's liberty with your freedoms. No, that's what they're doing. So they just turn it around, and it's extremely effective. If you don't think it's an effective tool, talk to some of your neighbors who are wearing these in their car. Talk to the people who say, stop bothering the schools. They're just trying to do their job and you're in the way. All right. Because they think making something visible opens it up to attack, they want to make their influence and power invisible. That's why they keep changing the names of it, because you can't make it invisible forever. They keep putting out, first of all, the teachers are so proud of this. They're such true believers, some of them, that they're like, this is great. I'm going to do it more. And if they try to ban me, I'm just going to proudly do it loudly in my class. And so they cannot silence their own people. So they'll just change the name of it, or they'll gaslight you and say, what you see is not what you see, but what you see is what you see. They want the things we see to appear unconnected because they want the thing that connects them, wokeness, to remain invisible and thus immune to critique. So no, we're not going to let them do this. Thus the point of this live stream and everything else you're going to do after you get done here and go sharing this or any other content you might find that makes that point to other people who are listening and not already brain dead. So no, we're not going to let them do this. We are going to give a name to the left-wing ideology, worldview, and movement that's built from postmodernism, critical theory, race and gender scholarship, neo-Marxism, feminism, and leftist activism. We are calling it wokeness, and we're not going to let them bully us into giving up the perfectly acceptable terminology that we use to name their ideology. So do not be bullied. Do not be bullied. Okay, so that was James and vocal distance and so forth. I'm going to skip past this. All right. You know how you've been told that leaving the schools is something, it's like white flight, and only the rich white people want to educate their own, want to say in how their kids are educated and are opposed to mandates and things like that, and they just gaslight you like crazy. Well, guess what? New Hampshire's education freedom accounts programs, this is where dollars follow kids, had 1,635 students, 1% of New Hampshire's K-12 students. 54% of them were from low-income families who qualify for a free and reduced price lunch. 54%. So remember that next time somebody tells you it's just a thing rich people do. They were 4 times more likely to be Black, brown, or mixed race than state demographics. Nothing to see here. Don't look. Don't look. Okay? They don't want you to see this. They don't want you to know this. They want to go on, Joy Reid's show or The View or whatever, Don Lemon, and they want to be like, this is a thing that rich white people do who are racist and white supremacists. So are all of these 54% of people, they're all white supremacists? I mean, just checking. And 43% switch from public school. 43%. So again, just the people who claim that it's only for the rich are wrong. I think they're lying. I think they know they're wrong, but you be the judge. Now, I want to show you what some very brave teachers are doing. This is Frank McCormick. You probably have seen him on my channel. Wait, sorry. I'm going to play it for you so that you can actually hear him. But Frank McCormick has been on this channel. He's Chalkboard Heresy. You can listen to what he has to say about what's going on in his school. So while it is Fox, and people will tell you, but it's Fox News, he has documents to show for it. Let's listen.
How do we recognize it?
So what you might look for is when students are asked to, as they use the word or the phrase, interrogate race, they may be lesson plans built upon these presuppositions that racism is systemic. I've seen lesson plans that ask students to do comparisons between apartheid in South Africa and the United States today, or lesson plans that ask students to analyze the so-called connection between police and slave patrols. And so those are examples of where the kind of built-in assumptions of critical race theory are being imparted upon students with no debate and no questions. It's presented as empirical fact.
Okay, your school district released a statement. Mr. McCormick is within his rights to submit opinion pieces to the local newspaper. In expressing his personal opinion, he is not speaking as a representative of any school or our school district. What's the name of your school district?
Waukegan Public Schools.
Okay, what's your reaction to what they said?
I'm not surprised. They're going to give a typical kind of political response. I think they're trying to figure out exactly how to handle me. But I'm not going to back down, and I'm not going to be quiet about this, because I think it's critically important that parents and the public understand what's going on and that we have this discussion.
Are you worried about retaliation?
I'm not really worried anymore. I'm more worried about the long-term consequences for kind of the social fabric of our country if this kind of racial identitarianism gets fomented in students. That scares me a lot more than the short-term consequences of a job.
What are your colleagues saying?
I think most of them think I'm crazy. I tell teachers, if you do this, you kind of make yourself public enemy number one and just expect to be ostracized as a result, because it's kind of the political orthodoxy in education. So when you speak out against this, you're kind of a heretic in that sense.
Well, you're being very brave. Thank you so much for everything you do, Frank. How do we recognize?
Okay. So there's Frank. Now, note a couple of things about what he said. He said they think he's crazy. They've gone farther than saying they think he's crazy. They have actually suggested that he needs mental health care. And that's going to become important in a few minutes, or maybe a little bit later than that, when I show you some other news that's out today. But remember, it's all connected. So you're going to start hearing, anybody who identifies what is now impossible to keep hidden is going to be described as insane, crazy, racist, insane person. If they can't get the racist part to stick, they'll go at you with the mental, there's something wrong with you. And if they can't get that to stick, then they'll double back around to the racist part, but they'll tell you that racism is now it's some kind of an act of harm. That they'll redefine what racism is and say that it is violence, that the words are violence. So that's coming. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted you to see what Frank is doing because he's very brave. And my theory is that if more of us did this, more teachers, more parents, more students, then things would start to crumble. But until we see that these things are all connected, and until we start all speaking out, like in different places, different walks of life. It can't always be, on YouTube. It can't always be just this group of people or that group of people, because it's too easy for people in these institutions to say, well, that's because you're this. It has to become so obviously a diverse set of voices, a heterodoxy, that they can't avoid it anymore. Or rather, we can't avoid hearing it anymore. See, we don't need to persuade them. We need to persuade ourselves that we are free. We don't need their permission to be free. We already are. We just need to actually live that way and stop complying with this nonsense. If we did, it would stop happening. And I want to show you to that. And because of that, I want to show you what one student has done. This is a student here in North Carolina. If more students were like him in his school or in all schools, this wouldn't be happening. And instead, tragically, too many of them have bought into this. And so, it's going the other way. But this one student in a high school decided that he was going to go get his lunch one day, not wearing his mask. And part of the reason he did it wasn't specifically to be provocative. It was the policy was inconsistently enforced. Kind of like that line policy at the DMV. It was inconsistently enforced. He saw some people with them on one day, another day, not, whatever. And he would ask about it and he'd be told, well, today is a really important day, when he was told to put his on. Because he would see people weren't wearing, whether it was at the library or somewhere else, and he would put it on right now, do this. And you're like, but I saw other people. You need to do it right now. Now, you, again, can guess his demographic. And, you get 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count. Why he was told consistently, you have to put yours on. You have to put yours on. Why today and not yesterday? Why me and not those other people? Well, today it's important. Well, because you're sitting here and not over there. I mean, these are the kind of answers he's been given. So listen to what happened when he went into the lunchroom. Notice, please, that this gentleman, he before the camera went on, he had his mask off because he's eating an ice cream. So it's literally melting in his hand. And he put it back on because he saw he was on camera. Watch.
Can you explain it to me, please? Can any of you explain to me why it's on my food? Can any of you explain it? You don't have any answer to that?
No, I'm gonna ask you a question. You have to have your mask on to be served in the cafeteria.
And are you aware that not giving me my food because I'm...
Man, hey, look, you do what you want, but you're not gonna be served unless you put your mask on.
But sir, you do realize that not giving me my food is a form of child abuse. You do know that, right? Seriously. And you do realize that not serving a kid's food is a form of child abuse, right? You do.
I want to pause there. The woman you can't see, who's slightly off camera, said, it's not my fault. Our boss said we don't have to serve anyone who's not wearing a mask. Then it actually is your fault. You don't have to, but you could, right? So it technically is her fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault, she's saying.
Really? You're saying that not giving a child their food is not a form of child abuse of any kind? What does the rules have to do with anything? It has everything to do with morality. You're not giving me my food, therefore it's a form of child abuse. It doesn't matter with any of this.
Why don't you just put it on? Just put it on.
Just obey. Why don't you just obey? Just put it on. Just put it on and we'll give you your food. Totally misses the point. Just do it. Just do what you're told. There's multiple different kinds of people in this one video. You have Mr. I have the authority and I'm done talking here. And you have, it's not my fault. He said we don't have to. It's somebody else. And then you have her, please, pretty, please, please. I don't want to be with these people and be mean and be a child abuser. So will you just please comply? This is a microcosm of the society in which you live, folks. It's not just at the school. This is all connected.
Ma'am, I understand that. It's the fact that it's just as equivalent. Ma'am, I have seen people not wear their mask properly. Ma'am, you're not wearing it. Ma'am, you weren't even wearing your mask properly. Yeah, ma'am, you weren't even wearing your mask properly. You were not wearing your mask properly when you were trying to talk to me. So how do you have any right to tell me I should not be allowed to wear my mask here? Seriously, you're being unfair in this situation. All of this is completely unfair.
And let's remember that he's going to get the food, sit down, and take off the mask and eat it like 20 feet away. Not even. And everything's protected by glass. Like everything, like they're behind, they're like what, 4 or 5 feet away from him, and all the food is under some kind of glass. But apparently that doesn't matter. That's, we don't care about that. Okay, so here's a kid standing up. This was on Sloan Rockmouth's channel. Please go check out her channel and you can see the whole story. She interviewed him. He's a great kid. His name is Luke. And I would love to see that spread. So if you do have a child in the school and you can speak to them and they are not already woke, and that is a risk, understand that they could become any one of the people in that cafeteria. They could, if they aren't already, be one of those people. Jordan, what do you mean? What's happening in the video? The kid is trying to get his lunch at the school. He's just at his school. It's here in North Carolina, and he just wants to go get his lunch in the lunch line, and they will not serve him. They won't serve him the food. If he'd brought his own lunch, he could have gone and sat down and not had a mask on, but they will not hand him food. They won't even allow him to take food that's there, or take it from above here where he's not breathing in anyone's face and go and pay for it. That's not allowed. So he made a video. And he wants everybody to know about it. Okay, so there's that's going on. Kids are speaking up, and they should. Now get a load of this one. Get a load of this. Randy Weingarten. Republicans and conservatives have become even more proudly anti-education during the pandemic. Projection. They've voted against nutrition programs, universal pre-K. They've disrupted school board meetings. And this week, Big Bird emerged as GOP enemy number one. Wow. Should we dissect this one? Well, first of all, Republicans and conservatives are not the only people at school board meetings. So, let's dispense with that. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat either. But the point is, it's not just Republicans. It's not just conservatives. It's a whole lot of people. And is it anti-education to close the schools and conspire with the CDC to do it? Is it anti-education to claim there's no such thing as learning loss? Is it anti-education to quit doing testing and grading and we don't need that pesky stuff, and to start saying that, learning the subject matters, it's not even really what we do at school. It's not the most important thing at school. And Big Bird is not a doctor. So I don't listen to Big Bird. I don't take my healthcare cues from Big Bird, Randy. But that's how delusional he's built. She is powerful, you guys. Extremely politically powerful. If you look at everything that's happened in public education over the past year, you definitely find her fingerprints, and also Becky Pringle's from the NEA all over him. Okay. They're everywhere. All of these policies, right down to the books that are in the library, trace back to them. And even in the private schools, I tutor a kid who was having me tutor him. It was a writing assignment for humanities, which covers ELA and social studies. But it was about the Constitution. No, I'm sorry. It was about federalism. In fact, they haven't even studied the Constitution, and he'd never heard of the Bill of Rights. He's in 5th grade. Never heard of it. No idea what it was. Didn't know what the First Amendment was. Didn't know what the Second Amendment was. Didn't know what the Fourth Amendment was. Didn't know what the 10th Amendment was. But they were doing a reading on federalism and what federal means. And in that, it said federal laws are superior to state laws. It literally said that. And then had the supremacy clause, and that is a gross misrepresentation of the supremacy clause. It painted the commerce clause as the catch-all wonderful thing that allows the federal government to assume powers when they just otherwise can't, because it's just like hamstrung and they can't do things. So isn't it nifty? They have the commerce clause so they can know anything that touches commerce, the reading said they could probably do something about. Yeah, this was the 5th grade reading. So I looked down at the bottom and it says, It's from iCivics. This is a private school, super expensive private school. So I send it off to Parents Defending Ed. They do the Nancy Drewing. Osrin Amani does the Nancy Drewing and comes back and finds out, oh, interesting. This goes back to the AFT run by one Randy Weingarten and to Mark Zuckerberg's little investment company. Yeah. And it's in the private schools. So if you were sitting there thinking, I'll just find a really good private school and all will be well. No, it won't. This woman and the Federal Department of Education and Mark Zuckerberg and all these people have their tendrils out into everything. And the teacher putting this material into the private school is really inexperienced. She's brand new. She might be in her young 20s. She just got out of university. And according to my student, when asked direct questions about American history, she has to say, I'll get back to you because she's studying between classes, he said. She's literally reading books between classes because she doesn't know the answers. That is a fact. And that is from a private school. So what's being taught in these colleges and schools? Whatever Randy and Becky and the federal government, Federal Department of Education want to be taught because money goes there for that purpose. They influence state board of eds more than anything else. And then let's talk about a kid, still a kid. I believe he's not 18 yet. On the outside, he might be 18 now. On the outside, Kyle Rittenhouse, who's on trial for his life, right? He's on trial. He's a kid. But we don't care about some kids. We only care about other kids when they, come up against the law, the long arm of the law and overzealous prosecutors. We care about them. But we don't care about Kyle, apparently. This woman, I do not know who she is, says, watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, witnessing his testimony, where he broke down, by the way, the PTSD got to him and he began bawling his eyes out. The blatant supremacy in the courtroom is jarring. So horrible to think we have a generation his age initiated into the violence. So horrible to realize no one really cares. This is us, America. You know what nobody really cares about? All the kids getting shot, including little babies in neighborhoods where you don't dare even go near your windows because of the crossfire. But nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about those kids and the violence in those neighborhoods. But they're fixated on Kyle. And where's the white supremacy? Why? Because he's white and the prosecutors are white and the defendant's attorneys are white. I mean, they're all white. Nobody here is black. In fact, none of the victims were black. What is she talking about? So apparently now, just getting a defense, your life is on trial, and just getting a defense is supremacy. He shouldn't be allowed to have one, according to her and her commenters, because he killed people. But when other people kill people, a police officer shouldn't even draw their weapon. They should just have a conversation, bring a social worker, let's have a circle, let's have a restorative circle and things like that. And that's the next thing I want to get to. I want to get to this whole restorative justice and everything. Let's just talk about that. Earlier this week, I posted a tweet. I think it was actually yesterday. I made a video about a violent incident that happened in New Jersey. 2 girls beating each other up because one allegedly said something racist to the other or around the other or near the other. We don't really know. That's the allegation. Something racist was said. It bothered, the impact was so great of these violent words on the one girl. She decided to start beating down the other girl. Okay. This is an upper middle class district. Even more wealthy than that, very wealthy public school district. And everyone stood around and recorded it. Teachers included. We're just standing there. Nobody did anything. So I made a video about school discipline or the lack thereof. You can go watch it on this channel. And I talked about how we have successfully made words violence. Only some words, though, of course. You can insult me all day long, but there's certain people you can't insult, or you can't say things about those people in the third person or anywhere near anybody, or you can't, at this point, you can't say, let's go, Brandon. That apparently is racist. So this girl is getting beat down. Nobody really knows why. And what did they do? They spent the rest of the day investigating what was the horrible thing that was said. And did you hear it? Were you impacted by it? Do you know anyone who was? Can we talk more about the words? The words, what were the violent words? Not the beat down, but the words. So that's the other thing that's happening is that Kyle's on trial because, oh my God, the violence that involved guns. Well, yeah, that's real, but we're not talking about the violence against him, the violence that he had to use to defend his life. And now, of course, he's on trial for his life, but it's all about, the white supremacy. Well, how do they resolve these kinds of disciplinary issues in school these days? Are there rules? Is there discipline? What goes on? Well, let's take a look. The same person who sent me the video about what's going on, in the schools with the violence, sent me something about, let's see if I can find it. Sent me how they deal with it. What they deal with it. It's called like equity. Well, I'm going to find it, but it's about how they have these circles and they do restorative practice. And what the restorative practice is all these circles of, discussion. And first they get out ahead of it, but we sit and have talks. And then we have some more talks. And then the talks set us up to be able to deal with the ensuing violence. But if the talks worked, why would you have ensuing violence? And so on. There's like all these little circles. That's how they deal with it now. They don't have rules. There isn't a rule that like you don't hit people. No questions asked. It's let's get together and have a restorative justice circle. And that's not even what restorative justice is supposed to be. Okay. They're trying to deal with all cases of violence using this stuff. And it's just not going to work. So let's see. Let me go to, this wasn't the teen thing. The PTA. All right. Now, you might think the PTA, no, they're not admitting you can be racist against white people. That doesn't happen, except Joe Biden. Apparently, I guess he's not. Because he said you can't be black if you didn't vote for him. I guess that makes him an honorary black person. I'm not really sure. Anyway, the National PTA. Were you under the impression that the National PTA was a nonpartisan organization? I was. I really was. Okay. So this is their little newsletter, Advocacy Insider. Advocacy, PTA. Okay. What do you think about schools using student data? They want to know what everyone thinks of it because, see, they're going to keep doing more of it. So what they're now looking for is data about their data mining. And what they're hoping, I'm sure, to find, because I'm sure they've framed this, our friends at the Future of Privacy Forum Youth and Education team want to know what you think about how schools use student data. So it's a survey. I certainly hope all the members of the National PTA go and say, we hate it. Please stop doing it. But I doubt that's going to happen because they'll frame it in terms of, we like to use data to help. Do you have a problem with that? And then we want to use data to help some more. Do you have a problem with that? So it's all in the framing of the questions, I'm sure. Let's see. Take the survey. Should we see what the questions are? Parental mindsets. They want to get inside your head. The purpose of this poll is to understand parental perspectives of how schools use student data. This poll is administered by the Future Privacy. With what racial, that's the first thing. With what racial or ethnic group do you identify? Why does it matter? Do my opinions hinge on my race? But why? I mean, is privacy different if you're not white? How would you describe you or your family's financial situation? Again, relevance. I thought this was to get my attitude about using data. This is actually collecting data. This is data mining the parents. They're collecting race information. They're collecting, financial status information. They're data mining the parents while asking about data collection. Oh my freaking God. And they're probably going to keep doing it. They're like, okay, I'll answer. I'm sure we're going to eventually get to my attitude about data collection while I don't realize you're collecting my data. This is sad, you guys. This is super sad. What grade is your oldest child? And now we're mining the data about, we're going to connect you to who your children are, what type of school they attend, how your oldest is participating in person, virtual, or hybrid. And now below is a list of some types of student information the schools might have access to. They might. No, they do. For each type of student information below, please indicate how appropriate you think it is for school districts to use this information for educational purposes. So they've already framed it just like I thought. They've already framed it as do you think it's appropriate to use it for educational purposes? I don't think that people are complaining about using the data for educational purposes. People are upset that they're taking the same data and without parental permission or even knowledge, selling it to third parties, sharing it with third parties, or allowing third parties to be deputized in the service of collecting educational data, which of course is now a really broad category, and keep it for themselves because they have a contract that says they can, and then they can sell it. That's the part people are upset about. So now it's attendance records, grades, standardized scores, all the stuff that you'd probably be like, well, I guess I don't have a problem with you using it for educational purposes. Notice we don't have an operational definition for educational purposes. That could run the gamut. I mean, they're saying, group therapy in the classroom is for educational purposes. They're saying that teaching your kid about oppressors and oppressed is for educational purposes. And they're telling them that, teaching them that America's a racist country is for educational purposes. So that's a pretty broad category. Sometimes schools or school districts will share student information with other organizations, at least they're being honest, or people. Below is a list of the types of organizations. Okay, again, all of these and up to researchers that analyze the data and use their findings to make recommendations about how schools can improve. This right here is your problem. Again, we don't have an operational definition of researchers. We don't understand what kind of recommendations and how self-serving they are. Go look at the consulting report card on Parents Defending Ed, because that's who they are. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and those researchers are making bank. They are making so much money off of this data. So we're going to thank you for giving us the data. We're going to put it through our own filters, not self-serving at all, and then we're going to tell you what you need. How convenient. And then we're going to sell you what you need. And in that process, we're going to collect some more data, and round we go. Okay. Companies that create educational software, websites, and apps. No, even if I were one, I wouldn't want to collect this data. And organizations that offer financial aid to public schools. Interesting. There are many ways student information could potentially be used in addition to direct educational. Oh, now we get down to it. In addition to direct. So we've worn you down with, where you answer you've already told us how much money you make, what race you are, all these things, how many kids you have. It's whether they're in public school or doing hybrid or whatever they're doing. And now, are you okay with helping companies market to educational institutions, et cetera, and to help colleges send information to students they wish to recruit? So again, they wear you down with the seemingly necessary stuff and not giving you definitions, and then you get down to it. And they will know if in this last section you say, yeah, it's very, not at all comfortable with it. And interesting how they changed the criteria. We went from appropriate and not at all appropriate to comfortable, agree, not agree, don't agree, strongly oppose, things like that. So they're going to know what race you are if you strongly oppose. Isn't that awesome? And then it's PTA Healthy Lifestyle Month. We all have a responsibility to make our planet as healthy as possible. No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't all have a responsibility to make the planet as healthy as possible. I don't have that kind of reach. I can only worry about my own reach, my own so-called carbon footprint. That's it. I don't have a responsibility about what goes on in China. Maybe our government does, but I certainly don't. Let's see. Support healthy minds, healthy bodies, and healthy earth with resources from National PTA. They have nutrition, physical education, social emotional learning, and then environmental health, remediation, sustainability, and climate change. That pretty soon, by the way, when they stop getting traction with the racism, they're going to go back to climate change. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Yes. Thank you for the super chat. My answer to the question is none of your business. I wouldn't answer the survey in the first place, frankly. I'm very curious what the resolution on social emotional learning is, and what does it have to do with the health of the planet? Interesting. Whereas social emotional learning is a process for helping children and adults acquire and effectively apply the fundamental skills that support their success in life. So now we're doing adults too. These skills include recognizing and managing emotions, developing empathy for others, establishing positive relationships, making responsible decisions, setting and achieving positive goals, and handling challenging situations constructively and ethically according to Castle, which is one of the companies. Whereas a health pandemic or natural disaster amplifies the concerns of basic needs of food, housing, and employment, pandemic-related anxiety, fear, stress, and worry, isolation, coping opportunities, etc. You see what they're doing now. Now they want to connect the dots that you have poor social emotional learning skills if you are not supporting the needs of the people who are afraid of all these things. That's where we're getting to. Whereas establishment of an SEL education program provides additional and worthwhile skills in the development and implementation of health, safety, and wellness, including but not limited to mental health issues, a focus on violence-free environments through education, community, family, and children-oriented programs, collaborations, partnerships, and whereas SEL provides engagement over the lifelong involvement, blah, blah. And then they're just getting into like, why they fully support all of this massive spending, because it's all connected. It's all connected. All connected. So the pandemic response, the education in the schools, the adults, the children, everybody has to come under this little, protective umbrella of the state, or bad things are going to happen, I'm sure, is what they'll say. Then we have a podcast supporting students of color. Can schools do a better job of affirming children's racial identities? How about you don't? That would be a better job. Why do you need to affirm someone's racial identity? Are you going to affirm the racial identity of white children? I'm going to go with probably not. Probably not. And probably you would call me a racist for even asking that question. But if there is such a thing as a racial identity, which I dispute, but let's say there is, let's say if they believe there is, let's let them have their argument. There's a racial identity. Why don't white children have a right to affirm theirs? We know they don't. And I'm not saying I want them to. I don't want any of this for any students. Your racial identity is a net negative. Okay. We don't want that. That's what we've been spending the last 100 years trying to get rid of. Culture is different than race. Okay. If you want to have cultural identity, you want to have traditions, you want to have rituals, you want to have these things and make that part of your identity, knock yourself out. That's a choice. You don't choose what your DNA programs your skin color to be. And you also don't get to choose in and out of it. You don't get to say to the person who is Black, well, you're not actually Black. You're not politically Black. Therefore, you're not Black anymore. So you don't get to tell other people what their racial identity is. But if you're talking about supporting somebody's, affirmation of it, that would be incredibly racist not to go across the board. I just prefer you not do it at all. Updates on federal funding. Okay. Build Back Better Act update. Obviously, they're really for it. So National PTA is 100% in service to the Democratic Party. And are you ready? Expectations of civility position statement. National PTA recognizes that we can only achieve our mission through ongoing conversation, collaboration, and partnership with other interested parties within the education system. These partnerships are critical to ensuring that our association's mission and priorities are meaningfully advanced at the local, state, and national level. To encourage respectful collaboration, the board of directors passed an expectations of civility position statement. What do you think that's going to say? Let's see. Disagreements will inevitably arise between parents and other individuals and groups who are invested in our education system. It is essential that every person is treated with common courtesy and civility, and that all parties conduct themselves in a polite, appropriate, and respectful manner, including tolerating differences of opinion and disagreeing respectfully. Now, I would think that's awesome if I actually had any faith it was going to happen with people like me, but it wouldn't, because we're not allowed to talk. So very nice that they put out a position statement, but given the fact that they have a public policy platform that includes priorities for the Congress that are completely in line with the Biden administration and the Democratic Party, that's what I'm trying to open up right now. So we have, more money into school, gun safety and violence prevention. That's going to mean a lot more gun regulation. Investing in school infrastructure. We got to build new facilities, child nutrition. We're going to feed them breakfast and dinner, safe, supportive, and inclusive schools. That's going to be more critical theory. And I don't even need to read it to find out, but I'll put this link if you want in the description section here. I'll put it right in the comment section. Y'all can go read this at your leisure. But that's the National PTA that you would hope would be, non-biased, but it isn't. And now I want to go and take you to, something else that I put in my bookmarks. Hopefully it's down here. Paul Rossi brought it to my attention. And this comes from something called equity. Yeah, here we go. He's got a whole thread on this. All right. So this is Loudoun County Public Schools. The officials there paid the Equity Collaborative $500,000 to train teachers to apply critical race theory. To apply it in the classroom. So when they tell you they're not teaching it, right, they're also not teaching Bloom's taxonomy. They're not teaching Piaget. But they're using these. Well, they used to use Piaget. I don't think they even do anymore. Nothing is age appropriate anymore. In any case, they teach teachers how to use this, how to have this worldview when they teach the subjects. And they paid $500,000. And this guy, a partner in Equity Collab, reveals what he thinks schools are for. Are you ready for this? Guys, you're not going to believe this. I bet you thought that schools were to teach your kids how to read, write, do math, understand science, understand the world, know some history, right? Okay, wait till you get a load of this guy. So he thinks that schools are not for any of that. But let's listen.
My job is to make sure that the thing that I think public education offers is supported and given to every kid. And the thing that I think we offer, because I certainly don't think we offer learning per se, I think what we offer are relationship. I think what we offer better, because the learning part in terms of information, what historically high schools were for was dissemination of information very quickly. It organized information to disseminate it. Well, actually the internet's better than the high school is. It's faster. It's got first person. You can do interviews. You got video. You're like, truthfully, the teacher in relation to dissemination of information is obsolete. But the teacher in relationship to relationship is the thing. What we have is people. And that is gold. That is gold. Figuring out how to capitalize on the people, well, that's the thing. People are down for that. People like that.
People are down for that. People like that. Are y'all down for that?
Is
you
to
like
make
that?
sure
you like that? Used to think school was for learning. Silly you. No. And then here he urges teachers, administrators and teachers to praxis on adults. Adults are the focus because adults are harder to change. Adults are in the way. The kids change much faster. Are you ready?
I don't think keynotes, conferences, I don't think that changes anything. What changes things are practice. And I mean a lot. Adults, to change adults, sometimes I wonder whether it's even worth it. Sometimes you're like, you know what, forget it. They should just get out of the way. We should get out of the way, let kids, because kids are faster. They'll change much faster. Adults are in the way. And
adults are in the way, guys. We're in the way of our kids' education. And the teachers apparently are in the way. Now, I would agree, some of these teachers, but the kids now on the internet are going to teach themselves. Okay, so I'm not hearing an argument for keeping the damn schools. Are you? Why are we paying for this? So the adults are too hard to change. And schools aren't for learning. And what they really offer is a relationship. Well, if relationship is the issue, I'd like to choose the adults who have relationships with our children. I think I should get to choose who has a relationship with my kid. Now, here's a clear example showing the importance of equity of outcome. All right. Equality of outcome. Talking about equity, he says we need to shift our language to come up with the outcome we want to see, and then addressing the inequities that prevent us.
I actually think it's easier to create a productive conversation about equity when you're talking about equity as opposed to addressing inequity. So my job and my idea is to shift our language to coming up with the outcome that we want to see and then addressing the inequities that prevent us from getting to that outcome. That people are down for equity, people are not down for challenging inequity. Right? And so as a result, it's important that you open up the dialogue so that people can actually see, because we don't know what we don't know. I actually think it's
we don't know what we don't know. Well, folks, I'd say you don't know what you don't know about this kind of crap. $500,000 paid to Equity Collab. Equity Collab is this lovely group that put out this wonderful cherry-picked timeline, educational oppression timeline, history at a glance. I went through it. I noticed some very interesting things about the Equity Collab timeline. It's missing. There's no Horace Mann. There's no Dewey. There's no Prussian model. There's no Woodrow Wilson. There's no time period when school was made compulsory against parents' wishes. None of that. They just went and cherry-picked every bad education law that tried to get in the way of equal access, whatever, over the years. And they had to go all the way back, and then they come forward and they get to, have voting in hindrances. What does that have to do with schools? Then they have different, they are allowed to keep kids out of school who have filthy and vicious habits. That's how they used to describe, or, extremely violent. They would keep you out of the school. Oh, that's a terrible thing. That was in 1921. That's how they talked. That's what they did. I'm not saying I agree with it, but no mention in here anywhere of we had compulsory schools. This is all just about funding and about things not related to school and oppression and whatever, but educational oppression. Apparently, everything's education as long as you can cherry pick some oppression that happened somewhere in the United States at some point, going back to 1779. And this is Thomas Jefferson, who proposed a 2-track education system with different tracks, in his words, for the laboring and the learned. Scholarships would allow very few of the laboring class to advance. Jefferson says, raking a few geniuses from the rubbish. Now, he was extraordinarily direct and honest, and I don't agree with that language. However, what is wrong with a 2-track system? We actually had one up until about 1980 or so. We had vocational technical. And in some places you still have it, where you didn't have to go through the college track to the college prep program to go to college if that was not even remotely interesting to you. And you could spend those 4 years learning a trade, learning a skill, and get a jump on the job market and go on to work. Okay. That used to be one of your options. And as far as scholarships, the reason you needed that is that all education was private. It was private. Okay. So they weren't going to just open it up to everybody. And there were good reasons for that at the time. This is 1779. So this is their definition of educational oppression. Mine, not teaching kids to read properly, using the science of reading. That's my definition of educational oppression. Yeah, that. Making kids put up with violent students in the school just to try to get an education of any kind. Which brings me to the next thing. If you're wondering what an educational audit looks like, or an equity audit looks like, I know that there are some people who have wondered, because people talk about equity audits, and we did an equity audit of our school and we found out this and we found out that, and we need to know what to spend money on and so forth. Here's what it looks like. I just got this sent to me. This is brand spanking new. They call it a cultural walkthrough. All right. This was sent to me from Red State by a teacher who's actually teaching in classrooms. And this is a teacher who sends me, messages pretty much every day about the latest, greatest fight that happened in the classroom, in the hallway, etc. You're a misogynist. Boom, boom, boom. There's a fight. He tried to tell some kids in his class, you have to put away your work from the other class because you have to do the work in this class. And they said, you're going to be the reason I failed my test, and you're a racist, and you're a pig, and you're this, and you're that. And had to tell the kids multiple times that they would have to cease and desist what they were doing because they were being disruptive to the rest of the class, and they still wouldn't stop. And pretty much every day of his teaching existence is breaking up fights, putting up with students who are just plain rude and nasty and cuss at the teachers, etc. But this is what the equity consultant says when they go through the school. Celebrations, hallways. Entrance of the building is colorful, energetic, and representative of the student body. Enjoyed seeing student work displayed, and the work that was displayed appeared to be very high quality. Love the bell transition. This seemed to energize students while helping students keep track of time. What was the intentionality behind this? Now, for those of you who don't know what intentionality means, they want to know how this is tied to equity, how this is going to be a good thing. And there was a bell transition. What did they do differently? What was the intentionality behind it? Continually saw hugging, dancing, and joy from students during transition periods. Community seems very strong. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to some of the highlighted parts. They have a restoration room, by the way. It's at the nurse's station. So we're conflating discipline with mental health care already. Changing of the verbiage of ISS to restoration room is fantastic. The counselor's office. Environment makes it very clear that all voices are respected in the space. LGBTQ representation, white fragility, welcoming, and representative decor. So white fragility is plastered in the counselor's office. Do you want to go get counseling if you're a white kid from something that has white fragility posters in the office? I don't think my kids would. Okay, so moving right along, I'm going to skip ahead to some other stuff that is kind of relevant. All right, let's get down to here. In the gym. This space could use a bit more representation. There's a quote from Booker T. Washington, but all other images and quotes are from older white males. Naughty, naughty. And then we have down here, this is the name of the school, so we can't say that. Would like to, or the name of the consultant, I guess, would like to see ex-ed teachers more involved in classroom spaces. E.g., instructor has a co-teaching role versus sitting towards the back of the room. Well, I mean, okay. And then this is doing well when it comes to teacher representation, when it comes to gender and race, but greater representation is always welcome. They're doing well when it comes to representation of gender and race. Okay. And then this says, all but one student was able to identify a teacher who looked like them, gender, race, and ethnicity. All but one student. This is what they're going around nitpicking. And what if they couldn't? What's the remediation there? If you were thinking teachers should be good at their jobs, no, they need to look a certain way. One student commented that she likes blank, but has difficulty making friends and feels some isolation because there are a lot of other students there are not a lot of students who look like her. This student was white. One student mentioned coding club, but was disappointed it was just for girls. The boys can't go to the coding club. And then we get down here. Questions. Notice that several of the teachers had the Black Power symbols outside of their doors. What inspired this? Was this encouraged by the administration? Why do you care? Is it good, bad, or indifferent? Like, what if they don't like it? I mean, have you received comments or feedback from students and staff? Would love to learn more about the utilization of blank. Has it been successful for your students? Then let's see. Elevate student voice and leadership. Develop a school-wide equity inclusion advisory council to get student input on policy changes, improvements, etc. This is Mao's Little Red Army. So these are public schools, taxpayer funded. No one child is supposed to be more important than another. No group of children is supposed to help set policy more than any other group of children. But they're going to have a school-wide equity, inclusion, and advisory council, which means that as a student, you must buy into these ideas or you can't be on this council. You can't be on the council. We're like, I don't think we should have the council. So this is a foregone conclusion that you agree with all of this to be on the council, which means that the only kids being on the council will be woke, which likely means they will only be from certain demographics, et cetera, and so forth. This council should mirror the diverse population of the school. I want to see how diverse the school is. These are the demographics, okay? The demographics of the school, 9.4% white, 69.1% Black or African American, 20% Latino, 0.9% Asian, 0.6% Native American, and so on. It's not a majority white school, but they're, very worried about all the racism they're going to have in school towards the Black and brown students. Okay. But not remotely concerned about, well, this one student doesn't feel included. She was white. It's in parentheses. Does it matter? Does it matter what race she is? Somebody doesn't feel included. You screwed up. You screwed up. And with your stated goal of inclusion. It's not very inclusive, is it? If boys can't be in the coding club, it's not very inclusive, is it? But this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. This is a culture walkthrough. This is what you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for. These people show up at your school. I believe it's like once a quarter, and they come and they walk around. It might be more. It might be once a month. And that's what you do. That's what it looks like. Okay. So that is that. What did I leave off? What else is going on today? So then I was sent, oh yeah, this is kind of depressing. When I talk about, am I like a buzzkill today or what? I'm so sorry. I'm like wrecking your lunch. You're like, thanks, Deb. This is really fun. Anyway, when I talk about it's all connected and how they're going to connect everything to mental health, they're going to start with your 3-year-old. And I've been talking about this on the channel, so has Sloan, that this SEL stuff and all this psychological mumbo jumbo that your school was never designed to do. They're not your therapist. And many of the people doing these things are not licensed clinicians. They're teaching teachers how to do these activities. And these activities are rightly called psychological interventions. They're therapy. This isn't something that you should just do with every person, but they are. And they're trying to make you believe that it's okay. And if you fight back, then clearly you have a problem. I want to show you what they do in this one program, Montgomery County Public Schools. I believe this is in New Jersey. And this is what they do for the littlest of the littlest kids. All right. This is pre-K through 2nd grade. Psychoeducational lesson. Did you know that your pre-K child, your first grade kindergarten child, first grade child, second grade child had psychoeducational lessons, not interventions. These are not interventions when a child shows there's a problem. These are lessons for every single child. Okay? Teacher note. This is an initial conversation on the topics that will be discussed today. This is not an in-depth conversation that occurs later. The goal of the lessons are to start the conversation, to address common reactions to the events, talk about stress management, and how to get help if needed. They're 3 or 4 years old. Objectives. At the conclusion of this lesson, students will be able to recognize 2 to 3 common crisis reactions. Your pre-K student, recognizing crisis reactions. I'm sorry. Why? There are some burdens that adults are supposed to bear while kids are kids. That's our job. They are not supposed to recognize crisis reactions. They are not supposed to have psychological education lessons. This is insanity. And yet they've normalized it. And it's all connected. They're trying to normalize this for you adults too with your DEI trainings at work. It is not normal for your employer to provide group therapy at your place of business. Okay, it's just not. But let's move on. Here's the introduction. Hi, my name is. Where are we today? Learning agreements. Take care of yourself. Take care of others in our learning space. Take care of our learning environment. What does take care mean, teacher? I'm 4. What does take care mean? What does taking care of myself mean? Can I have an operational definition of these? I don't know the words operational definition, but I'm 4. Zoom classroom expectations. Pre-K Zoom. This is so heartbreaking. We shouldn't have this. Children need to be with each other or just with a parent or with a trusted adult for learning or just run around outside. This is take care of it. While someone is speaking, please mute yourself. They're pre-K through 2nd grade. Find a space that helps you learn at your best and focus. This is for their parents. This isn't even just therapy. They're parenting the children through the school. Raise your hand through the chat if you want to share an idea. Okay, my kid is in 8th grade and the kids aren't raising their hands. And that's in a private homeschool online program. Okay, they have to be reminded. Following directions and listening to others. Okay, what's going on in the world? This is again pre-K. There's a lot happening in our world right now that you ought not to know about yet because you're in pre-K. Let's talk about some of the major events that are happening. COVID-19, social justice responses to combat racism. They don't know what racism is yet. And they're about to be told by people other than you in a framing that has them believing their country is racist, scary, etc. The next slide, this is for teachers, contains 2 video options to discuss COVID-19. The first is intended for pre-K and K. The second one is intended for 2nd grade. 1st grade has the option to use either video, depending on what the teacher feels is appropriate, but leave it up to the non-licensed clinician or non-licensed non-clinician. Delete the video that you don't choose to use. PJ learns about COVID. Oh, I wonder what's in that. I'm not going to click. We're already at an hour 12. I mean, wait, should I watch? Show of hands. Should I click on it? Should we see what PJ learns about COVID-19 in pre-K? Do you guys want to see? Let me know. And the mysteries of life with Tim and Moby in 1st and 2nd grade. Is this what you want happening when you send your child to school? Are you thinking they were learning to read, or was this what you thought was happening? And then, of course, this is fine. This could be in like health class. You know, we have wash your hands, etc. And then time for a break. Oh, let's stretch. Let's stretch. Teacher notes, blah, blah, blah. Oh, facts. I'll get to it. I'm going to do it, Adrian, but hang on. We have to look at the facts. Remember the facts? A kid's book about racism, Anti-Racist Baby. Interestingly, they put that as 1st and 2nd grade, Anti-Racist Baby. This one's for pre-K and kindergarten, but these have a point of view. They have a point of view. All right, I'm going to go back up and see what PJ was going to learn, but read alouds about race. Oh my God. So when they tell you the truth, this is really opinionated. But let's take a look at what PJ is going to learn about COVID. Let's see. I'm so scared. Oh, that's muted. Sorry.
Home all the time is so hard. I really miss all of my friends from school. So many grown-ups have been talking about coronavirus, and I have a lot of questions. Oh, I know. I'm gonna call my friend Julia. She is a child life specialist at Hassenfeld Children's Hospital. She is a grown-up that I really trust, and I bet she can help.
This is pre-K. Okay. I'm going to call my friend at the hospital.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, Julia?
Hi, PJ.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hello. Julia,
Yes.
why are you wearing a mask?
Thank you so much for reminding me. I'm going to take it off right now because I'm by myself, but wearing a mask is one thing that I'm doing to protect myself and everybody else from coronavirus.
Coronavirus! Julia, that's exactly why I called you today.
No way.
Do you wonder why kids are so terrified all the time and putting their masks on, to the point where I saw somebody post a picture of her child who had pictures taken at school, and the kid wouldn't take the mask off to have her portrait taken. And the mom was proud of this. So she's going to have her kid's school picture. And the photographer said, you can take it off for the picture. And the kid's face was like this over the mask. Like, why would I do that? This is why. I really don't want to watch the whole thing. I'm sorry, guys, but I just don't. So moving right along, as I said, these are facts. Now, I do want to point you to something. See this anti-racist baby thing? This is based on all of this notion that we have to even do this at all with such young children is based on an extremely flawed study, especially anti-racist baby, that my good friend Adrian, who is in the chat, has on Saya Sophia, her channel, which you should all subscribe to. And she broke down this extremely flawed study of racist babies. It's not what they say it is at all, but go watch the study, or go watch her break down the study, and you'll understand better why this is not anything resembling facts. Okay. So that's the, that's what they do for pre-K and psychological education, whatever. Why does this matter, Deb? Well, this might be why. Today in the news, okay, we have this article. Well, I don't want this stupid free trial thing. Okay. Facing discrimination for age, sex, or race can put your mental health at risk. If it were real, but what if it's imaginary? So a new study, Adrian, will you please do this one? Will you please break down this new study? A new study looked into the health effects of discrimination and found that young adults who are repeatedly exposed to discrimination. Well, we now know that discrimination is let's go Brandon. I mean, discrimination now is such a broad term. I don't even know what exposure to it would be like anymore, but they face a higher risk of mental health and behavioral issues. Approximately 93% of study participants disclose that they experience interpersonal discrimination at some point, most commonly due to age, physical appearance, sex, and race. If 93% are experiencing it, I'm going to guess that that definition of discrimination is really, really broad and extremely subjective, which is kind of scary when you think about the fact that I am talking to you on YouTube, and probably before too long am going to be accused of physically harming somebody, causing their mental health problems because they watched a video of mine and have now been exposed to discrimination. And there's a well-established link between discrimination and its impact on health, et cetera. A new study, Journal of Pediatrics. Well, we already know it's crap. But Adrian, still, please go pick it apart. Then here's this other one, study facing, this is both two articles out today. So we know this is important because when NBC, the mainstream news starts saying, this is important, look, big study, it's because they want us to start getting acclimated, drip, 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 to the idea that our words are that the discrimination is harmful, is causing harm. Couldn't possibly be that the words that are being used in the classroom telling the children they're being discriminated against are causing them anxiety. No. It's some kind of mysterious exposure to discrimination out there by the people who don't agree with doing that. So it's okay to sit and tell kids all day long, you're an oppressor. Did you know that you're an oppressor? You need to decenter your whiteness and you're too white and you got to decenter that and you got to be against all that. And you got to, look at all the things of the past and hate them all and disagree with your parents and only agree with us and form bonds and relationships with total strangers who call themselves your teachers, even though they don't think that you should learn any skills at school. You should go do that on the internet by yourself when you're 4. But, we're going to bond with you and tell you how everybody else is messed up. And anybody who tells you different is harming you. But I'm harmful. That's why 2 girls were beating each other up at a school. That's why kids beat each other up every day, not because we are suddenly out of nowhere in the last few years this intensely racist nation. That is not the case. They would have data to show us. They don't have data to show us. They just have the study that says discrimination hurts people, but they aren't going to show us where the discrimination is coming from. They're just going to call it discrimination. The perception, remember, impact is more important than intentions in critical theory. So that's what we get from that. And where does this logically lead, you might wonder? This is where it logically leads to things like this. You can read the headline. White students not allowed at Pennsylvania School District drone camp. Now, this is National Review, so they're covering it, but I'm sure that somebody would say this is perfectly fine. A middle school in Pennsylvania is receiving pushback from some parents for hosting a drone flying camp over the weekend that was not open to white students. Now, those people who know me really well know that a few years back, when my middle and youngest daughter were still at a public charter school here in Charlotte, there was a segregated trip to Washington, D.C. for a science program for girls in science, girls in STEM. But they only took the BIPOC students. My daughter wanted to go. She wants a career in science. She was explicitly told to her face she couldn't go because she wasn't BIPOC. Public school teacher. Well, I complained. I went to a reporter, and to my everlasting shame at the time, because they threatened to sue me if I continued with my pursuit of publicly outing them, okay, for what they had done, because they said that they didn't do anything wrong. It was all private dollars. They didn't spend a dime of district money, a dime of the charter's money. It was all the parents who paid for the travel, etc. They threatened me. I backed down. Big mistake. Didn't realize how far and wide this would spread. Wish I had outed them then. But nevertheless, they said that it was okay to do. It was okay to discriminate because the parents had paid for it. The teacher went. The teacher was the main chaperone. The teacher was the one who got them signed up for the program, and she did it on school time. She recruited the students right in front of my daughter within the classroom. She was being paid at the time. So for them to say, we had nothing to do with it, it's perfectly fine to have this discrimination, even though it's public school, because it happened on the weekend like this. It happened with the parents paid their own way to get there. And the teacher took some vacation time because it wasn't just the weekend, it was into the week. She took some vacation time. Was she paid for that vacation time? Then it was taxpayer dollars. I shouldn't have backed down. I feel like a coward, and I'm ashamed that I did that. But I'm making up for it with this YouTube channel. So this doesn't surprise me in the least. And I bet I actually recorded that board meeting. One of these days, I will get that recording. It's an audio recording, and I will take excerpts and post it, and your jaw will drop. But anyway, this didn't surprise me. This headline didn't surprise me. I saw it, and I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I bet this happens all the time. I bet this has been happening for years. But we're just now noticing it because, again, it happened to me and my daughter, and that was at least 2 years ago. It was closer to 3 years ago. Okay. And they made a video and put it on Instagram where they were chanting and like, we hate Trump on the metro in DC. So there's that. So, that happened. That's where these things logically lead. I think I've pretty much, there was only one more thing I wanted to cover, because as I've already shown you, they do most of these things using technology. They use technology to train the teachers with PowerPoints and Zooms and YouTube videos. So I want you guys to get better at searching YouTube for materials from equity consultants that do business with your district. You can find out who those consultants are simply by asking, who's our equity consulting company? I'm so interested in the equity program. And they'll tell you, oh, it's Equity Labs, or, oh, it's this. Thank you. I'm so excited. Sometimes you can just go on the district website and type equity, and you'll find out who they're working with. And thanks to Castle, or thanks to Equity Labs, or thanks to this, or thanks to that. And then you want to go to YouTube and look for their trainings, because they put them out there, and you can watch for yourself and see what the teachers are being taught. And in some cases, like what I just showed you, what the kids are being shown. but they do it using technology. And as if the messaging wasn't bad enough, you need to understand that technology, we already know that the education is not happening for the skills. And we just heard the guy say that's fine because school isn't for that anyway. It's internet. Do you want the internet to teach your kid to read? Is that how it works? I have students who I tutor who are in, again, private elementary school, fancy private elementary school. Their handwriting's illegible. They can't spell. If the spell check doesn't check it, they don't understand grammar at all. So I had to do a whole lesson yesterday about the 6 verb tenses. No clue, didn't know them. Just didn't know anything about, present perfect, future perfect, past perfect. Didn't know what a past participle was. No clue. So she consistently gets them wrong in her writing, which is what I'm tutoring her for. And I've been telling her, write it down and read it aloud so you can hear the mistakes. That's, that plus teaching her the grammar in 4th grade is all I can do. But they aren't teaching any of this. And they're just thinking technology is going to take care of all of it. Do everything in Google Classroom, everything on Canvas, everything on a screen. They take keyboard in class, but not handwriting class. And of course, as you know, there's a lot of money in, tracing those keystrokes. They're given an email address that's tied to the school. It goes straight to Google. They know exactly what they do with that email address. They know exactly how long they're on the computer. They know all these things. And I personally think is really bad for little kids to learn their basic skills using technology. I have said that for a very, very long time. And I'm just going to keep saying it. And people can, believe me or not believe me, but I want to show you how committed public schools are to the notion that this is perfectly fine and they're going to keep doing it, because a graphic went out to the same mom who sends me like 90% of my stuff. And I'm going to show you this graphic. They actually make fun of people like me who think that, let's see if I can share this at all. I wonder if I can, who think that it's bad to use technology with little kids. I think I'm going to have to show it on this screen because it won't show any other way. I have to show you on the entire screen. Okay, here it goes. So I don't know if you can see this. It's a pencil, and the pencil graphic, there's little things that talk about, what the pencil is. I'm going to read it to you, and you'll notice the pencil metaphor for integrating technology into schools. See, they want this to be a big thing. Is how they grab the data, they do the data mining, and it's how they manipulate your children. The leaders, oh, great. Now, way to go, Deb. You can't even read your own document. Hold on. I've got to get this right because this is a mess. The leaders, basically what they say is that the leaders use technology properly and everybody else sucks. But I'm going to get it bigger. All right. Here it's bigger now and I'll be able to see it. There we go. Okay. Let me get back to share. Sorry for all this technical mumbo jumbo. Share screen. Okay, here it is. So here's the pencil. The leaders, they're the first to adopt new technologies, document and share practices, warts and all. Then we have the sharp ones. They watch the leaders, grab the best bits, learn from mistakes, and do great stuff. The sharp ones. The wood. The wood use tech if someone else sets it up and shows them how to and keeps it running. Okay. And then we have the hangers on. They know the lingo, attend the seminars, but don't do anything. Oh, naughty, naughty. And then we have the ferals. They hold tightly on to what they know. Tech has no place in their classroom. Guess that's me. The erasers. They endeavor to undo much or all of the work of the leaders. This is their bias. The pencil metaphor, which is hilarious because they don't use pencils. They want the kids to just use technology. And here's my little article about technology. The dark side of ed tech. I'll put this link in the description box so you can see. But there is a dark side. And what's hilarious is one of the dark sides is it's inequitable. These kids don't always have access to high-speed internet or tech at home or whatever. But more important than that, you don't learn to read well using a screen. You don't learn to write well. You don't learn grammar if it's constantly correcting you and it doesn't correct correctly. It makes mistakes. Grammarly is not that effective. And spell check doesn't know what grammar you're trying, what form you're trying to use of the word. It doesn't recognize the difference between homophones. It doesn't. This is a stupid way to teach fundamental skills. Now, Does that mean you should never, ever, ever use Khan Academy or use, some kind of a math program to teach little math games? No, of course not. But that's not how you teach the skill. Those are practice tools. Those might be things for fun. Like, just, hey, you did something on paper and you learned it. But there will be kids who are pre-literate and the directions are written in the tech of how to use the tech and they can't read them. So they're dependent on the adult. Whereas you can have things to touch and play with like these little math blocks that I have. I don't need to read. I don't need to know how to use a computer. I don't need to have fast internet speed. I don't need to know how to write or spell. But I think I can understand the concept of 8 because I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I can teach numbers. I can teach math without any of those other skills when your brain is ripe to grab hold of it. But this is getting us ready for the multiverse. They want our kids to be just living in this alternate reality. If it's not on the internet, it's not true. If I didn't see it somewhere in social media or the powers that be didn't program it into my VR, then it didn't really happen. That's why they're so gung-ho about tech, not because it actually works, because it doesn't. It's not a great tool for teaching skills, except teaching tech skills. And it will not effectively teach your child to read. That is not the way to do it. And reading on a screen not only hurts your eyes, but you don't have the same comprehension. Never mind the distractions. The words on a page in a paper book are retained better. There is research on that, real research. They don't have data to show that this is effective, but they're using it anyway. And as I said, the reason they're doing it is to mine the data from your kids' usage of it. But then, as we've seen, they don't even want to teach them anything except, relationships. So it's all connected. They just want us to be little cogs in their giant machine where they tell us what job we're going to do and they tell us where to live and they tell us where to work and they tell us what thoughts to have, and anything else will be extremely dangerous. That's a crisis reaction. Stay away from that person. They will hurt your mental health. This is how they're going to sort us into the clean and the unclean and the dangerous and the safe. They didn't have to even tear up the Constitution to do it. So that's what I wanted to talk to y'all about. And that's what I started thinking about sitting at the DMV. And I'm sorry if I wrecked your day. Do I think that all hope is lost? No, because we can still save individual children. You can still save your child's mind. You can get them out of this system and do it at home. Will it be difficult? Yes, it will be. Will it be more difficult than turning your babies over to this? That's for you to decide. I can't tell you what's harder for you. Just can't tell you. Anyway, so thank you so very much for coming. I'm sorry I didn't get to more of the comments. Adrian, I am going to put the links to all of this stuff in the show notes after I'm done. I'm just going to go grab all of these links and put them down below in the description. You guys can play around, do all that stuff. But I just want you to be aware that there are other places you need to look. So if you're not on Twitter, I'll try to bring you things because that's where I get a lot of things. I'm in a few lists and I get fed a lot of stuff. Also, you need to subscribe to edwatchdaily.com. edwatchdaily.com. Okay. That is Brad Thompson's publication. And he gets up very early in the morning, like pre-dawn hours, to put in several hours, just pulling together all of the ed tech for that, not ed tech, the ed news for that day. And he finds some great things. So subscribe to that. And then, like I said, go to your district's website and go into the search and type equity. That's where you're going to find all of this stuff. Okay. And then follow the path to who is the equity provider, the consultancy, the DEI program coordinator. Find out what brands they're using. Find out who produces the materials, and then it will all become clear to you. So if you say, well, my school's not doing SEL, promise you they are. My school's not doing critical race. Yes, they are. My answer is just, yes, they are. There's not a state in this nation right now that isn't, because that to get the money, the ARPA money that is sitting in a giant pot full of money in the federal government, they have to. It is one of the conditions to apply for a grant for these ARPA funds is to do SEL, to have an SEL program. And every school district has an equity plan since Barack Obama. They have had one. You just didn't know what they did. So this stuff is old. It's not brand new. It just because you first heard about it in the last year doesn't mean that it is brand new. It's been going on a very long time. So That's what I have to tell you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Consider subscribing to the Locals at thereasonwelearned.locals.com. And I will continue to try to bring you more updates about this sort of thing as I have them. Have a great day, y'all.